Okay, well, I've been putting off doing content on this channel for a bit, and things have suffered because of it. The problem is that life happens, especially when you're trying to be a productive adult. But I'm just going to try to do a bunch of the rest of the platform, and then just see how long that I can go. So this one might be a long one. I would apologize, but whatever. So let's just transition. And now we left off with Article 6 of the platform. So now we're going to start with Article 7, energy. This is also fairly involved issue in the party, and therefore the politics of it. Article 7, energy. Section 1, the Idaho Republican Party believes that the United States shall at all times, I think there's a typo in there, at all time strive, I think the grammar on this is wrong because it just feels wrong when I try to say it, strives to become energy independent. Section 2, we strongly support energy policies that encourage research and development of our energy resources, including natural gas, hydroelectric power, petroleum, nuclear energy, and new technologies. Yeah, we aren't really going to do all that well if we aren't putting effort into researching and developing the stuff that we're going to need. I mean, I'm pretty sure that there's at least a couple of sections in the previous couple videos where, this is referenced a lot, where, not only does Idaho have energy needs, but so does the rest of the country, and we should look into acquiring and producing as much as possible. Section 3, I'll scroll. I think the scroll wheel on this mouse is better than the last one I was using. We support efforts to reduce our dependence on foreign oil. We support efforts to increase American exploration and production of American crude oil and natural gas, support voluntary efforts to improve efficiencies, and promote conservation. Congress must end its ban on American energy exploration on U.S. soil and on the outer continental shelf, and provide for additional American refining capacity. We must make America's resources available to U.S. citizens. Because, there isn't any real good reason as to why anyone outside of this country should have priority on them. I mean, that's another very Republican idea, is not only American exceptionalism, but just simply America first. Section 4. Idaho has the lowest electrical rates of the 50 states. Nothing should be done in the deregulation process that might raise those rates. I really don't understand how you could call yourself a Republican and be opposed to that one. In fact, I don't see how you could be an Idahoan and be opposed to that one. That one, I think, might actually straddle party lines, as it were. Next one. The benefits of hydroelectric power should be retained for the citizens of Idaho. I think I just said the reason why a little bit ago, but, there's not really a whole lot of reason as to why people from outside of the state or even outside of this country should have priority over Idahoans on it. Now, if we have excess and we're not using, okay, fine, we'll sell the excess. But as far as anyone else having priority over Idahoans on it, no, that's not a good idea, especially if we want to continue as a state. Section 6, we oppose any mandated regulation that would negatively impact ratepayers. Again, not a surprise that a Republican would say that. Not a surprise that a Republican platform would say that. And really, I want to hear a good argument otherwise, because so far I haven't heard one. Section 7. We support the Center for Advanced Energy Studies and other coordinated efforts in energy research and development and their applications to the utilities industry within Idaho. I think that just goes on along with the first part we started out with in this article. There's not really a Republican reason to be against that either. All right, so moving on. I'm still going to use the arrow keys on this. Scroll wheel is better with this Acer mouse that I found in a box, but yeah. Anyway, Article 8. I totally forgot how to do Roman numerals. Okay, yeah, Article 8, Idaho National Laboratories. I think this is just a part of the last article, really, as far as the ideas. The Idaho Republican Party believes in the great importance of the Idaho National Laboratory as one of the state's largest private employers, its importance to our nation's defense, and to energy and other technology research and development. Okay, so it's touching on a few different things, and energy being one that we just talked about, and also we would very much like for the United States to continue as a sovereign entity, and it's going to be more difficult if we aren't doing the things that we do in the Idaho National Laboratory. And not only that, but anyone that's employing a lot of people productively and consistently, well then, yeah, we should want jobs. So all of this, very Republican, very middle of the road Republican stuff. This isn't even extreme or anything like that. Section 1, we support research and development programs that provide safe, economical nuclear power. We further support new nuclear technology that has greater safety, produces less waste, and resists proliferation. And the thing is that we've always had that position, but it's definitely something to think about now that we really consider that a lot of these green options that are out there are not only very much a net negative as far as what it takes to develop and deploy, like especially with like wind turbines. That one is a net negative both in the energy they produce and on the environment. I mean, because that's a whole thing. Section 2 of this article. We encourage our congressional delegation, the state, DOE, and Department of Energy, and the INL, just talked about it, management to assure continued research and development, transfer of technologies, new missions, and development of alternative energy treatments and storage methods. Look, if we're going to be doing this whole INL thing, we got to be doing it properly, and Section 2 is what that is. We're getting into the much shorter articles now. Good. Article 9. Private property rights. The Republican Party believes... No. They just said Republican Party in there. Well, I don't think there's anything incorrect about that probably in the national platform, so we're going to continue. The Republican Party believes in the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. We oppose any federal, state, or local regulation that would diminish a property owner's right to develop his property. And that's why Idaho has so much of a problem with the DEQ and a lot of the federal agencies that are not elected, but they choose to make a lot of trouble for Idaho anyway. So yeah, and plus some people like to say otherwise, but you know what? As far as any government intrusion on your life is automatically a problem. If you're stopped for no reason and searched for no reason. Well, Republicans are actually against that. And if you're doing something on your land that isn't bothering anyone else, then the government should have no say in any of that anyway. A lot of really basic, fundamental freedoms that you would have as an American. So that was Article 9. Article 10. State and federal lands. The Idaho Republican Party believes that due to state and federal governments administering the majority of Idaho lands, we need to limit and reduce the amount of land owned and administered by the federal government. We believe Idaho should manage and administer all state and federal lands. Yeah, come at me, bro, on that one. That's an inherently Republican position. The federal government definitely has way too much power and too much say in a lot of those matters. I don't think I need to dwell on that very much. And you know what? If you call yourself a Republican and you have a different idea, well, let's talk about it. Go down into the comments, or hit me up an email or something, or speak out about why you think that's why you have a different opinion. Let's have a conversation about it. So, moving right along, Article 11. The Idaho Republican Party recognizes the value of wildlife resources for the state. Again, it's Idaho. Most of Idaho is actually pretty empty and full of wilderness area, especially a lot of central Idaho stuff with trees, a lot of southern Idaho stuff with a lot of sagebrush and desert type stuff. Of course, we would have that position. Section 1, we encourage the Idaho Department of Fish and Game to manage fish and wildlife to enhance fishing, hunting. Oh, okay, I see why that's different. The wording confused me here for a moment, so I'm going to start that over. We encourage the Idaho Department of Fish and Game to manage fish and wildlife to enhance fishing, hunting, and hunting opportunities for Idahoans and the tourist industry, while respecting private property rights of landowners. Again, we have this one priority, and we have this other priority. Got to balance them, but we should definitely be doing the whole, hey, recreating and hunting and all the wilderness stuff. We should keep that going. I think I've even said as much in a previous video. Now, I don't think that one's extreme either. Section 2, we oppose federal designations which restrict or eliminate hunting, fishing, and recreational access to lands in Idaho. It's like, well, yeah, the federal government isn't out here. We are. We should be the ones in charge of that. Pretty simple. That's not even extreme. That's actually a very centrist thing, because I know of at least a few Democrats, I'm not going to call them out, who hold the same position. Pretty much, where the federal government should not be the ones who are administering all of this and designating things and whatnot. One of them even was the Democrat frontrunner for governor one year. Anyway, Section 3, we oppose the reintroduction of wolves and grizzlies into Idaho. We support managed control of these predators through Idaho Fish and Game Department. Oh my gosh! I didn't even remember that this was coming up, so I didn't really think about it much, but yeah, we should not have Canadian wolves in Idaho as any kind of rebalancing reintroduction effort, like at all. Not only that, but the wolves are causing more problems year over year as the time goes on, and we don't do much. Now, the Idaho legislature has definitely been trying to do stuff about this. Now, and as far as how you feel about that depends on how good those efforts actually are, but they are trying, and it is generally not only majority, but I'd be willing to bet supermajority opinion of the voters in Idaho that wolves are a net negative. They are a problem in Idaho, and whatever problem that they are addressing by their presence here, is just simply outbalanced by the harm that they cause. Even in a blue county like, say, Blaine County, there's very few people that actually live with any kind of real regularity in Blaine County, and and have a pro-wolf, a pro-wolf position on it. And I know previous people who have been previously in my life would have a very different opinion on that. But you know what? The practicality of the matter is that wolves are a net negative, and Canadian wolves don't need to be here. Moving right along, Article 12, Economy. Okay, we've probably already said a bunch of things, so a lot of this is actually probably redundant. But you know what? Let's go through it at least. Article 12, Economy. The Idaho Republican Party believes that economic growth is the key to enhancing the quality of life our people so richly deserve. Fiscal responsibility in the form of balanced state and federal budgets is essential to achieve this goal. A competitive market free of undue governmental governmental isn't a word, I don't think, but undue government competition, restriction, coercion, or interference is critical to Idaho's economic well-being. Said it a million times in these videos already, but yeah, the less that the government is involved in these kinds of matters, the better. Whether it be state or federal government, you got to be leaving the economy alone. I mean, you've got to be protecting the economy, not interfering in it. So, Section 1, Commerce and Industry. Subsection A, we encourage the broadening and strengthening of Idaho's commerce and industry, including but not limited to agriculture, timber, mining, manufacturing, processing, technology, tourism, and other industries. So generally the strengthening does mean get out of the way, but sometimes there is a thing or two that the government can do in order to make things easier on the said industries. And when it can feasibly do that, then absolutely. I'm going to check on OBS here real quick. Yep, still recording, about 17 minutes now. Subsection B, we encourage the responsible use of our natural resources to broaden and enhance Idaho's economy. We support innovative and responsible programs by industry to reduce pollution in every practical way. Government should intervene only where such efforts fail or must be supplemented by law. Gotta use what you have to do what you need and what you want. There's not really a whole lot of extreme elements to that. I keep banging up against something behind me. Yeah, this is pretty centrist actually. Nothing really extreme about this. Now, I don't imagine why you would actually be a real Idahoan concerned about Idaho and have a different position. But if you do, I want to hear from you. Put in a comment or send in an email or something. I'm not hard to find. I want to hear from you. As long as you believe that you have a rational position on that, I'll be kind to you. I'll be fair to you. Subsection C, we endorse economic development and expect. I'm going to try that again. Subsection C, we endorse economic development and expansion in Idaho and pledge to make every effort to provide a business climate that will attract such growth. Indeed, not only do we want money coming into the state, but we need businesses and other economic activity coming into the state to make the money worth it, as it were. So of course we're going to have a position that, yeah, we endorse that, come on in. As long as you're here to contribute to Idaho, absolutely, come on in. Just don't try to make the state what it is, what the previous place that you were. If you know what I mean. There's a lot of people who come here because Idaho's pretty great, and I agree, Idaho is pretty great. And then they start advocating for positions and policies that make Idaho like the place that they ran from. So Section C says a lot more than just the face value of it. And that's a very Republican thing. Section 2, support for small business. Subsection A, we recognize the important role of businesses in Idaho's economy, that we must maintain a regulatory environment where small business is allowed to thrive. Excessive regulatory requirements must be reduced and eliminated. Yeah, I mean, the Republican centrist Brad Little was even saying as much. You can argue on exactly how much he actually, how much of his own word he kept to there, but you know what? That is a rather centrist position. Subsection B, we support a tax code that is simple, fair, and equitable. Now, I could take the extreme position and say an extreme thing about the tax code itself, as far as what we're supposed to be doing about it and what we're supposed to be making it into. But you know what? I'll leave that there and just say, yes, this is very much a Republican idea, that tax codes should be simple, fair, and equitable. Subsection C. We support a business environment that promotes development and expansion of businesses in Idaho and eliminates all onerous, repressive government regulation. I think that's just restating a lot of the just previous stuff there. I think that's a little bit of a repeat. So I'm going to move on. Section 3, labor. We believe that both the employer and the employee share a joint responsibility for maintaining a safe work environment without excessive regulation. There's a really mean joke I could make there, but I'm not going to. But yes, your job, the management in your job, should absolutely be providing, doing what they can, what is reasonable to provide a safe work environment. Of course, there are any number of things that a worker can do to make a work environment less safe, less hospitable. So everyone that is at that particular job has some responsibility there, and that's the Republican position on it. Everybody should be working towards a safe environment. Subsection B, we support education and professional technical education to develop a well-trained workforce. Well, yeah, if we need people that can do stuff, then we need to train them, or otherwise be attracting them in. Pretty simple. Subsection C, we believe that public employees should be hired, retained, and promoted based on individual merit, and that they should be fairly and equitably compensated comparable to private industry. Now, the first half of that, should be hired, retained, and promoted based on individual merit. I don't understand the opposing position on that. Because if you're a public employee, you're working for all of us. And if you're working for all of us, you should absolutely be hired, retained, and promoted based on merit. Because if you're promoted or retained based on anything else, or hired for that matter, if you are done so with on something other than merit, well, that's inherently a problem. That's quite literally corruption. And as far as the rest of that, you know what? Yeah, it should. The only way that a government job should be cushy is if something comparable to private industry is also suitably cushy. So I could say a lot of extreme things about that, but it's a fairly middle-of-the-road Republican kind of thing to be saying subsection C right here. Just saying. Section 4, transportation. We believe transportation is an integral part of our commerce and industry, and it must meet the unique needs of Idaho. We believe transportation decisions and funds should be managed at the local and state level. Because what's the alternative to local and state level? Well, that would mean the feds. The feds don't know us. They don't know what's going on here. They come in and interfere. That's not good. We've already had most of the platforms say why. So yeah, that's a very Republican thing. If you have, you know what? If, like I say, if you have a different viewpoint on that, I want to hear from you. Put in a comment, put in an email, or just speak out about why you think otherwise. Article 13. Low-hanging fruit. I'm not making that joke. Article 13, Health and Welfare. The Idaho Republican Party recognizes the need for effective and accessible health care for all individuals. Regulations that forbid Idahoans from buying insurance across state lines should be eliminated. I think this one was, I think this bit of text was pre-Obamacare, but it works still. Yeah, you come up with some good discussion as to why you think some other view would be Republican. Section 1, private enterprise healthcare delivery system. We support private that provides cost-effective, quality healthcare with minimal government regulation. Because, yeah, you know what? A lot of this, I'm just going to say, you know what? If you have a different view, that means you're likely of a different party, and that in and of itself is fine, but you know what? Don't refer to yourself as Republican if your view is different. Section 2, Patient Protection and Affordable Health Care Act. We oppose socialized medicine and government-mandated health insurance. Spend a whole video on that, but you know what? Let's just keep going. Which idea is Republican and which one isn't? Come on. Subsection B, we support the repeal of the Patient Protection and Affordable Health Care Act in its entirety. Again, not a surprise. It's not even extreme. Section 3, General Principles for Healthcare. Subsection A, Conscience Clause, rather. All persons and legal entities have the right of conscience and should be protected under Idaho law if they conscientiously object to participate in practices that conflict with their moral and religious beliefs. Yeah, because, if you're going the otherwise, that means the government is forcing you to go against your beliefs. That is inherently wrong and that is inherently unconstitutional. This includes, but is not limited to, abortion, the prescription for and dispensing of drugs with abortifacient potential, again, Plan B pills and the like, vaccination, human cloning, embryonic stem cell research, eugenic screenings, euthanasia, assisted suicide, harmful, futile procedures, and the withdrawal of nutrition and hydration. All of those are videos unto themselves, and you know what? If somebody really wants me to cover that at some point, I might. But yeah, just accept that this is the Republican idea. An idea otherwise is not a Republican idea. And it is completely fine that you are not a Republican. Just don't refer to yourself as a Republican. Saying that a lot. Subsection B, we believe the primary responsibility for health and welfare of our citizens resides with the individual and their families. That is the primary responsibility. Absolutely. Now, if it needs to be otherwise, well, okay, government can step in and help. But the person who is in the driver's seat of that should always be the individual and their families. It should always be that way first. Subsection C, we support freedom of choice and personal responsibility in all medical decisions, including providers and treatments. Medicine should not have a level playing field for all treatment branches of medicine. I'm pretty sure I just said that wrong, so I'm going to say that last sentence again. Medicine should have a level playing field for all treatment and branches of medicine. As far as you have an issue and what you choose about it, that should totally be your determination. That is your choice. A real choice, not a fake one with the abortion debate. Subsection D. We support as supreme... I'm starting that again. Subsection D. We support as supreme the authority of parents in all medical decisions for their children, including providers and treatments. I'm not sure of the grammar in that one, but it's very much the Republican position that the authority of parents in those matters is supreme, and only in very certain circumstances should it be otherwise. But even then, be careful about the government intervention. Subsection E. All persons receiving health care should have legal capacity to give informed consent and should be so situated as to be able to exercise free power of choice without the intervention of any element of force, fraud, deceit, duress, overreaching, or other ulterior form of constraint or coercion. That's pretty much a repeat of a lot of things that have been said already. Government should not be interfering in such things and should not be coercing you into such things. Pretty simple. And that is definitely not extreme. That's a personal sovereignty kind of idea. Section 4. Health savings accounts and insurance. Now, this one I'm less strong on. And that's just simply because I haven't had the issues with such things as a lot of other people do. So I will often defer to other people in these kinds of things. But I'll read Section 4, Health Savings Accounts and Insurance. Subsection A, we believe that individual responsibility for healthcare should be encouraged through the medical savings accounts and other viable free market alternatives. Well, yeah, if there's a free market alternative, it should absolutely be available to you. Subsection B, we support the rights of individuals to select their healthcare and insurance provider. If it is available to you, you should absolutely be able to choose it. The government should not be involved in that conversation. Subsection C, we believe health and welfare programs should be administered with a minimum of bureaucracy and the goal of helping all recipients return to self-sustaining and productive life. What's the phrase? Help up, not hand out. Moving on. Section 5, Child Support. We support enforcement of child support laws to ensure the restoration of parental responsibility and the enhancement of financial security for children. I don't see what's objectionable in there. That's actually pretty milquetoast. American Family, Article 14. Here we go. It's gonna rustle some jimmies, as it were. Article 14, American Family. The Idaho Republican Party believes that traditional family values are the foundation of our nation. Families, not government programs, are the best way to properly nurture and protect our children, care for our elderly, preserve and perpetuate our cultural and spiritual heritage, and assure that our traditional values are transmitted to the next generation. Many of the ills of society can be attributed to the breakdown of the family. We believe the traditional family to be the basic unit of society. Some pretty based stuff right there. I can't see anything really extreme with that, unless you start from the position that children do not belong to their families. Now, children absolutely do belong to their families. And it kind of doesn't matter if that's a little bit of an extreme point. That is a Republican view that families should be the ones protecting the children, caring for the elderly, preserving preserving our culture and assuring cultural values, go on and on. Because, here's a fun thing. I happen to know of a person who fairly early on was put into the foster care system here in Idaho. And he remembers very little of his life before that, but he did remember going to church. And the person that, well, it was mostly a person, but I believe that in the original arrangement it was a family of sorts, but in the foster system. But after 1 or 2 years of being in foster care under this a person, he asked when can he go to church, and oh, my dishwasher is done. He asked when he could go to church, and was basically told by the person who had guardianship over him at the time that God is fake. The things that the churches tell you aren't real, and you shouldn't think about that kind of stuff. And it really affected him for quite some time, and he kind of believed it for a while. And then later on, when he became an adult, he got reacquainted with religious matters, and he knows that a lot of his life was damaged because he didn't have a religious grounding. And this is because of the foster system here in Idaho. A person was allowed to treat a child like that. Anyway, Section 1, Government's role. We believe that, subsection A, we believe that that state and federal social and fiscal programs should reinforce parental responsibility and authority, and not promote or reward the disintegration of the family. And I happen to know that the Department of Health and Welfare is absolutely encouraging otherwise. I'm not going to spell out exactly why. I would know, but they are actively encouraging otherwise. Subsection B, we support a tax system that strengthens a family's economic ability to care for and support its members. Well, yeah, if we're taxing people too hard to the point where they can't care, where the family can't be cared for, that's a very big problem. That is a society-destroying problem. And so if we could tax this person less, that would be great. Section 2, traditional marriage. None of this should be a surprise. And some people like to refer to it as extreme, but it's not really all that extreme, especially when you consider how many people actually believe the same. Section 2, traditional marriage. We call upon Idaho government officials and legislators to protect the traditional family and use all means possible to prevent expansion of the definition of marriage beyond that of a bond between one man and one woman. We recognize that the definition of marriage and its administration is not subject to federal authority, and that Idaho is authorized to nullify any federal congressional act, federal mandate, or court opinion that is contrary to traditional marriage. Now, I'm willing to bet that that block of text was written well before a certain time recently, but still true. Subsection B, we recognize traditional marriage without the issuance of a marriage license for those who, for religious purposes, object to the role of the state in licensing traditional marriage. And when I was getting sealed in the temple to my now ex-wife, I was kind of wondering a lot about why the state of Idaho had to be mentioned at all in that. And really, why is the state involved in the business of marriage? Shouldn't be. That is a matter between you, your spouse, and your maker. Now that might be a little bit of extreme, but as far as what's here in the platform, that's not extreme. You can refer to it as such, but that doesn't make it so. Section 3, right to life. We affirm that abortion is murder, and abortion is murder. From the moment of fertilization, all children should be protected regardless of the circumstances of conception, including persons conceived in rape and incest. There was a whole discussion about this when a lot of this was rewritten back at the Twin Falls Convention, but landed on something good here. And the next sentence is where I kind of differed with Scott Herndon on the platform amendment. But you know what? His is correct anyway, and the party agreed. So that's what's here. The federal judiciary played the tyrant in dozens of Supreme Court pro-abortion opinions since Roe v. Wade up to the Dobbs decision, and Idaho has the sovereign authority to defy the federal judiciary should they once again propose the fiction that abortion is a federal constitutional right. Because it's not a constitutional right. It never was. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg knew and said that it was bad case law. Even she knew. We support the criminalization of all murders by abortion within the state's jurisdiction. We also support strengthening the Idaho Constitution's declaration of the right to life for preborn children. Came out a little strong, but there's a difference between strong and extreme. Subsection B. We affirm our support for the sanctity of life from conception to natural death and for the rights of the unborn child. We oppose abortion based on sex selection, convenience, or as a method of birth control. And before somebody tries to say that some of those things don't happen, we know that they absolutely do. We know that people wanted a girl or wanted a boy and decide to abort based on those wants. We know that that's happening. And we know that countries like Iceland are basically aborting due to certain kinds of conditions that they believe that they are detecting properly in utero. And it's coming out that, hey, maybe we aren't really detecting Down syndrome properly, and how are you gonna know if you aborted that kid, you murdered that kid? You're not gonna know if you actually got that right. Anyway, and if you're killing a kid based on convenience, you're the extreme one. Not this platform. You're the extreme one. Because you're putting your work promotion or your goals in life ahead of somebody else's life. You're putting that supreme over somebody else's life. That's the extreme position. Anyway, moving on. I could say a lot about this. Subsection C, we oppose partial birth abortion and we support legislation to abolish this practice. An alarm just went off or something, and I'm totally just going to continue recording. Going to check OBS real quick, though. I've been going for about 43 minutes. I'm going to keep going. And I really think a lot of what was going on in this section should just be shortened to subsection D here. We oppose all abortion because we oppose all abortion. That is a Republican view. Moving on, though, subsection E, we oppose the expenditure of any Idaho taxpayer funds by any unit of government, including federal, state, county, and municipal government, to any provider of abortion, and strongly support legislation to enact the same. And I believe that's happened already, if memory serves. Not only that, but when the argument started over taxpayer-funded abortions, people were trying to say that it wasn't happening in Idaho. Well, come to find out, some people were totally using state funds for abortions for one reason or another, whether it's a matter of supposed hardship, supposed defect, or in all likelihood, probably convenience. We know that people were doing that. So we support such restrictions. No public money. If you're going to be killing a kid, do it somewhere else and do it with your own frickin' money. And I know that's not extreme because the public agrees. Subsection F, we strongly encourage adoption as an alternative to abortion and support legislation that expands opportunities and provides assistance to the adoptive process. Now, I happen to know subsection F right there is pre-Obama, essentially. I know that it was written before then because it's not my story to tell, but somebody very close to me in my family found, they did a lot of introspection and they came to the realization that they are one of those people with the special kind of hearts to adopt a child. And so, right as that they were getting ready to do that, to go through the process to find and adopt a child through some private religious means, rules had come down straight from the Obama administration pretty much the weekend that they were going to start. The weekend. Pretty much banning or making extremely difficult any kind of private adoption, especially those from through religious means. And it still breaks them. It still breaks him and his wife up every day about that. And so, yes, you can imagine how I feel about how my family feels about subsection F right there. It's like, not only should we be doing adoption as an alternative to abortion, but we need to be getting government out of the way. Not just federal government, but all government out of the way and assist wherever prudent in helping the adoption of these kids. And the thing is that which hurts the kids more? They're already in a pretty bad situation, and you're making it worse by making more rules about things and preventing people from welcoming you into their home. Why are we getting in the middle of that? Why? We do not have a good reason. There is not a good reason. There was never a good reason. And you know what? One of the disappointments I had with the Trump administration is that he never undid that. And now it's kind of too late for the person in my family, but I'm going to move on. Section 4, children. I just go into that, and then it goes. Okay, Section 4, children. The Idaho Republican Party recognizes that children are a heritage of the Lord. Oh, I think I know who rewrote that. We believe parents, not the state, have a sacred duty and a legal right to rear their children in love and righteousness, to provide for their temporal and spiritual needs, and to teach them to be law-abiding citizens. Wow, that's touches on several things that I've just been over just in this video. We believe biological gender to be an essential characteristic of a child's identity and purpose. We call upon parents, responsible citizens, and officers of the government to promote measures that respect and protect the biological gender of children. We strongly oppose any person, entity, or policy that attempts to confuse minors regarding their biological gender. Now, if this was, say, more than 2 months from now, I might have actually conceded that the last paragraph there was approaching extreme. But as it turns out, voters everywhere and people from all parts of the political spectrum are coming over to basically what this block of text is right here. And it didn't help that certain societal and social things were coming along with that, like the whole Bud Light thing going on right now, and a lot of the pushback to a lot of transgender stuff going on right now. So, no, this text right here, not only is it not extreme, but it is most certainly a Republican idea. And you know what? I think we can have a lot more common ground with people on that than maybe what we originally thought. We shouldn't be confusing children. Article 15, Older Americans. Oh, here's another one that's going to probably get me to tear up. Section 1. The Idaho Republican Party has always supported and will continue to support older Americans. The party will look to preserve and promote opportunities in America so that older Americans can provide for themselves. Those unable to care for themselves should have access to all services available in Idaho, whether city, county, state, or federal. And those who know me know what I was doing for most of the year 2021. I was taking care of my grandmother, and to a lesser extent, some other people in that household that were in and out of that house for a time. And that touches on a lot of things. You know, the thing is that if the people in your family are unable to take care of themselves, you know, the family should be the ones taking care of them when possible. And I was that person, because pretty much everyone else in the family, for one reason or another, didn't have the time to do it. And so that was me. And that was probably the most special time in my life, is those 9 months in the middle of 2021, the year 2021. Getting certain kinds of care for my grandmother was paramount. Now, luckily, there are certain kinds of services that will actually just come to the house. They call it in-home care or what have you. Actually, I'm forgetting the word that they would use to describe it, but got to know some pretty special people in the course of that, because a lot of the people that they would regularly send you to either take her blood pressure, or do an evaluation on her to see if she's still good. Is anything with her getting worse? What and in what way is her dementia getting worse? That kind of thing. So you meet these, usually they're nurse types. You get to know those kinds of people too, and I really don't understand any regulation that would get in the way of those special kinds of souls coming in to take care. I do not understand getting in the way of that. I do not understand it one bit. If the government can get out of the way so that that kind of situation is better, then it should absolutely get out of the frickin' way. I'm going to move on before I make this a 3-hour video on that. Section 2. We oppose policies that penalize older Americans who continue to work. Yeah! I mean, if you can still work, then why the hell not? Anything that is against Section 2 right here is inherently backwards, and I contend is the extreme position. This is not extreme at all, right here. No, that is not extreme at all. I'm going to move on. Article 16. I think I'm doing that right. My Roman numeral. See, the problem is that I'm not Roman. And I'm definitely not living in the time in which that numbering system was more prevalent. So I have to do a little bit of math, and the exceptions with letter placements with Roman numerals. So Article 16. Law and order with justice. Oh, here we go. A lot of the people that I know inside of the Republican Party, these very subjects can cause a fight. I'll just say that. Article 16, Law and Order with Justice. The Idaho Republican Party believes that individuals must be presumed innocent until proven guilty. That is not an extreme position. And I have to say this a lot during this video, but the opposite is the extreme position. If somehow you believe that somebody is guilty before they are proven guilty, you have some kind of extreme prejudice on that person. Moving on. After a person is convicted of crime, however, we believe in swift and just punishment for the lawbreaker and timely payment of restitution to victims. Courts and the prosecutors should continue to recognize the substantial rights and interests of crime victims in the judicial process. Yeah? Now, there are some basic human rights when you are an inmate in the system, as it were, or if you're on probation and whatnot. You should still have certain rights, but punishment should absolutely fit the crime. That's not extreme. That's actually pretty human. And not only that, but the human rights of the lawbreaker, as they're terming in here. I would have used a different word, but lawbreaker. The human rights of such a person should not outweigh the inherent rights that crime victims have. I could blab on a lot about that because I've been on both sides of that. I'm going to go on. Section 1, gun rights. Oh, here we go. Subsection A, we support the right of the individual to keep and bear arms as guaranteed by the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution and Article 1, Section 11 of the Idaho State Constitution. You know what? I'm actually going to look that up. Let's, Article 1, Section 11 of the Idaho State Constitution. Idaho State Constitution. It would help if I could spell Constitution. Okay, so what was the citation that they just gave? Article 1, Section 11 of the Idaho State Constitution. Article 1? Is this showing up on a OBS? Looks like it's showing up on OBS. Yep, okay. Article 1, what was it? Section 11. Right to keep and bear arms, of course. So, I don't know how well this is going to show up on the video, and I'm not going to adjust it right now, so I will just read from the Idaho Constitution here directly. Section 11, right to keep and bear arms. The people have the right to keep and bear arms, which right shall not be abridged, but this provision shall not prevent the passage of laws to govern the carrying of weapons concealed on the person, nor prevent the passage of legislation providing minimum sentences for crimes committed while in possession of a firearm, nor prevent the passage of legislation providing penalties for the possession of firearms by a convicted felon, nor prevent the passage of any legislation pushing for the use of a firearm. Nor prevent the passage of any legislation pushing the use of punishing the use of a firearm. No law shall impose licensure, registration, or special taxation on the ownership, possession of firearms or ammunition. Nor shall any law permit the confiscation of firearms except those actually used in commission of a felony. Okay, so that's a little bit more milquetoast than, say, the Republican view on it, but this going on right here, I'm going to close the other window now. That's not extreme because it's literally just quoting the Bill of Rights and the state constitution. That's literally all it's doing there. Subsection B, we commend efforts of organizations to preserve and foster that right, including the right to carry laws. Well, there's certainly been a lot of that in recent years, and I've had a very, very, very small part in that. I testified in a couple committees. That's pretty much it. You know what? I should really It's been a while since I've been in regular use of a firearm. Maybe I should go to a range or something. Anyway, we believe the federal government should not regulate intrastate ammunition and firearm sales. Well, yeah, because we just said A, so of course we believe C. All right, well, continuing on, subsection D, we believe in protection of the American firearms industry against harassing lawsuits that blame them for the acts of criminals. That one's getting a little spicy there, but it's still a very Republican position. Subsection E, we call for more enforcement of current laws against violent criminals, not more gun control aimed at law-abiding citizens. Pretty based. Pretty milquetoast, actually. I mean, if you're obeying the law, you shouldn't be harassed. Pretty simple. Subsection F, we strongly oppose the United States entering into any international agreements or treaties which would undermine, limit, or interfere with the individual right to own and bear arms and ammunition. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. We have our guns. We are obeying the law with them, so we shouldn't be bothered with that. We definitely should not be bothered by some outside entity. Subsection G. We find that Congress violated the Second Amendment's protections in the 1986 Firearms Owners Protection Act, and when the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, BATF, interpreted the Hughes Amendment as a prohibition on the civilian possession of any fully automatic firearm manufactured after May 19, 1986. Well, that's a rather specific point. And I think I know when that was written, and that was not back in the 80s. But anyway, Section 2, death penalty. Finally, moving on from that. Section 2, death penalty, subsection A. We believe the death penalty is an appropriate consequence for the most heinous crimes, and that further reform should be made to the appellate process so that the penalty can be carried out in a timely process. That one's a little bit spicier, but you know what? Still very much within the Republican range of thought there. Section 3, drug use. Subsection A, we recognize the dreadful consequences of drug and substance abuse in our society, and we call upon our national, state, and local leaders to refocus efforts to discourage drug use and rehabilitate drug users. We encourage all Idaho citizens and their religious, civic, and community organizations to be actively engaged in this effort. Well, the problems that drugs cause, government isn't the solution to them. So they should absolutely believe that the religious, civic, community organizations, well, yeah, those should be the ones that really push back against against the hard drug use and whatnot. Subsection B. We support creative alternative sentences such as drug courts treatment for non-violent drug offenders. Well, yeah, if they're not violent, we don't want to be putting them in the same hopper, as it will, with the violent ones. Pretty basic. That one I know is middle of the road and not extreme. I know somebody who referred to it as extreme. Now, look, I don't think that person is referring to himself as Republican anymore, but this goes to show. Anyway, Section 4, incarceration of criminals. Subsection A, we recognize the enormous financial burden placed upon society by criminals. Therefore, we support requiring inmates, to the extent they are capable, to perform labor or otherwise contribute to the cost of their incarceration. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, if you can, absolutely contribute. Prison labor is not in and of itself a bad thing. Now, there are definitely things that can go wrong with prison labor, as it were. There are some definite things that could go wrong with that, where it would be bad, but inherently, though, no. Subsection B, we support programming and education in the correction system to rehabilitate offenders. Because really, that's what most offenders are in for, is for some manner of rehabilitation. Section 5, juvenile justice. We support accountability for and rehabilitation of juvenile offenders. I don't see anything un-Republican about that. Subsection B, we support dealing with youthful offenders early to reduce future impact to the welfare and correction systems. Again, it's the whole prevention and cure. A pound of prevention is, well, an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure kind of thing. Absolutely. And not only that, but a certain life should be improved on the way to that. Finally, moving through all of that, we are now Article 17. The Idaho Republican Party believes in peace through strength, and that having and keeping the strongest military in the world is essential to preserving our liberties. We believe we should never sacrifice liberty for security and oppose any limitations or incursions on the constitutional freedoms, rights, and liberties of American citizens. We strongly support the Idaho National Guard under the command of Idaho's governor. There's a lot to unpack there, but basically just be Republican about the issue. That's literally what it's just saying there. So, yeah, moving on. Section 1, Veterans. Oh, getting into the strong stuff here. We believe that America owes her continued freedom to the service of military veterans. And that is true. It's very true. We reinforce our commitment to providing their needs and honoring them with the highest degree of respect and appreciation. Most Republicans, most Americans, not just Republicans, most Americans are completely in line with Section 1 right there. Nothing extreme about that. Section 2, National Missile Defense. We support an effective national missile defense system to protect American citizens. We oppose efforts to re-enter the ABM Treaty or any other treaty restricting America's ability to protect itself from attack. Yeah. I mean, we're supposed to be able to protect ourselves, right? So we shouldn't be entering any agreements otherwise. Now, Section 3 right here is definitely a definite Idahoan thing because Mountain Home is just down the road from Boise here. It's a great thing that it's there, too. Section 3, Mountain Home Air Force Base. We support the Mountain Home Air Force Base in its vital mission to protecting Idaho and the nation. We recognize and value the economic contribution that the base makes to our state. Nothing un-Republican about that. Section 4, Securing the Border. Ooh. Now this is where we get called extreme, even though you can't have a nation without borders. But here we go. Section 4, Securing the Border. We believe securing the national border must be a priority for our country. We support the construction of a border wall along the entire southern border of the United States. Again, not really all that extreme when you consider that we're going through all of this bother to actually have a country. Therefore, if we're going to have a country, we've got to have things like a border. Section 5, Combating Terrorism. We support efforts to combat terrorism within the scope of the Constitution, including the use of military force. And there's a very big qualifier there, but that's pretty in line. The scope of the Constitution. Now, going outside of the Constitution, when any level of government does that, it's a problem, and definitely so when we're combating terrorism. You're violating somebody's constitutional rights in order to combat terrorism. Well, guess what? We don't deserve the good situation that we're in if we start doing that. Section 6, Command of Forces. We believe American combat troops should not be used as world policemen. UN combat operations should be supported by a multinational coalition, and when U.S. forces are committed in U.S. combat operations, the United States should retain ultimate command of its forces. Well, yeah, it's our military. We should be in charge. Simple as that. Article 18. Election of judges and Idaho Supreme Court justices. The Idaho Republican Party opposes any attempt to undermine the constitutional rights of the people to select judges and justices in an open and competitive election process. I mean, we see them on the ballots all the time. We support the election of judges in a partisan election process because, well, there's a lot of things, unfortunately, about what they do that is partisan. So there we go. We oppose any interpretation of the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the State of Idaho that is not rooted in the principles of textualism and originalism. We emphatically affirm that judges have a duty to interpret statutory terms to mean what they convey to a reasonable person at the time that they are written. Again, that's not extreme. You might try to say it is, but it's not. That's what a reasonable Republican would say. Moving on. I think this is the last page. Article 19. The Idaho Republican Party believes religious freedom is a fundamental human right and essential for any society or community to flourish. We oppose any efforts, state or federal, legislative, executive, or judicial, to limit the free exercise of religion by its citizens at home, their place of employment, or venues otherwise publicly available. We oppose any efforts by the Congress of the United States to limit the scope or applicability of the Bipartisan Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993. And I think that this block of text came well after 1993 if it's got Article 19 on it. But, matters of conscience and the matters of conscience and belief are one's own, and to presume otherwise is to deny a person their right to exist as they see fit. So this is actually pretty milquetoast. We should definitely leave people alone about such matters. And that's a fitting end to saying that, because it looks like this is the end of the platform. Finally, I got to the end of it. It was about, let's see here, an hour and 12 minutes I've been recording. So that has been the Idaho Republican Platform. I finally got through it all. I can now say I've done a complete video series on it. I'm going to record a little channel update thing, and then I'll be done for the day. Through all this, I've received a lot of communication in the background about this, that, and the other, and I hope that we can come together as a Republican Party on the actual platform, because that's what we're meant to do at every convention. And since at every convention these platforms pass, that is the official word of the Republican Party. So we need to come together on what the platform says. And it's okay if you have some sort of difference with it. It's just you need to be a little bit honest about it, that's all. I don't think that that's unreasonable. So with that, I am going to stop recording. You'll have a good rest of your day.